Now, back to Access Tech Live.
We're back on Access Tech Live. Hume AI is a company whose mission is to give applications empathy, an AI voice with emotional intelligence. But how and why? Well, Stephen caught up with a very cool company, the CEO and chief scientist at Hume AI, to learn more. Here's Alan Cowan with Stephen.
So tell me first off about Hume and Hume AI and how it all came to be.
So Hume is a startup and research lab that's building technology that understands your expressions and language and can form expressions and language of its own. So it really communicates like a human. And other than that, it involves the same kind of technology as ChatGPT, where it has reasoning capabilities, it can take actions, and can be built into any application.
Now, I know that AI has been around for a long time. We can see that in lots of different examples over the last few decades. But it really is in the last couple of years that we've started to see a real ramp up in the growth of artificial intelligence. So it feels to me as if you're ahead of the curve on this as well, because really that is the natural next step, I guess, isn't it? That, we take what has become, to some mind, an assistant, and make it have some kind of personality, give it a personality.
Yeah, and personality really aligns with intent and motivations, and you express that through your tone of voice, through your body language, through your facial expressions. And so giving AI these capabilities is really in line with its ability to carry out our intent. AI has these incredible new capabilities, right? But they're sort of unaligned with us. It can do math, it can reason, it can create a legal document, but it doesn't always know what we want out of it. It doesn't always have our interests in mind. It is trained to generate something plausible, but not something good, not something funny, not something interesting, not to explain things in a way that's more concise and more interesting to us personally. And it's not easy to optimize that for individuals, for you. So we've built the technology that allows you to take these really powerful algorithms and have them learn your preferences as an individual so it can optimize its output for your preferences.
And we're starting to see more AI models bringing that in. I mean, this seems to be the year 2024 of personalization, where these AI models are being able to remember more. They have a memory to them. But you want to take that to the next level, which is to, as you say, humanize AI. Is there a danger with that? Is there any risk that perhaps we look at AI as human in the way that we have a conversation with it? Is that a danger potentially?
I do think it's sort of inevitable that AI will be able to imitate humans better and better, because that's what it's trained to do. It's trained to generate sort of plausible responses. And so that's something that we're worried about, is that it will be used for manipulation and things like deep fakes, tricking you into believing it's someone else. And so we have these ethical guidelines around it, but we also have the technology to prevent that. So the technology that you need to prevent that is indicators of somebody's happiness, essentially, and optimizing it for those indicators, because it all depends on what it's optimized for. If it's optimized for your happiness, it won't do things that are quote unquote manipulative, that get you to buy things you don't want because that would make you unhappy, right? Or to have sympathy toward it, even though it's not a real thing, and take actions that cost you money or that cost you time, but aren't actually directly beneficial to you.
It's interesting that you went down that road when I asked you that question, because that is a common narrative at the moment, the fear around manipulation. Of course, deep fakes were coming up to a major election in the US. Many people are concerned about what that is going to look like in reality. But there's another side to this, and it's a side which I think, from the world of disability, I tend to think about, which is isolation. Now, social media isolated a lot of people generally, but there are already a number of disabled people who are already isolated. Instead of giving them human connection, we could potentially be offering AI connection. Is that healthy?
I think it can be. And that's an area where we really need to think about how this technology is designed, because it's not going to replace a friend. It's not going to replace a parent. It's still an AI that doesn't have conscious feelings of its own. But it can be really helpful in the way that a therapist would, in that it can provide objective feedback. You can be honest with it. It's never going to be judgmental, right? It's always going to be, it's an AI, so you don't have to worry about what it thinks. And that can actually make it potentially more helpful for some people in expressing their feelings, coming to terms with them, getting good advice, being able to get over humps, and potentially being encouraged to find ways to be less isolated by finding other people to connect with.
I think we're too early to know whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, right? I don't think we know the answer to that truthfully yet, because we haven't really seen it out there enough. I mean, I saw at a couple of exhibitions this year a dog created by Sony. They had created this dog called Aibo, which, ran around and you could feed it and you could tickle under its chin. And this is a robot dog and it had some sort of AI development within it. And, people were able to play with it and it could learn from you. And I guess this is where that sort of line between reality and computing kicks in and I guess gets a little bit unnerving. But your work is interesting because you're not just about the AI voice talking to you with a certain tone. You're also about recognizing that tone as well. And I find that quite interesting. So it is about that wholeness of the interaction, right?
Yeah. So a lot of AI, and most people probably haven't experienced this, but there are new AI solutions you can talk to. And what they do is they transcribe your speech into words. They put it through a large language model like ChatGPT, and then they have a separate model that then voices the response. But what you start to realize as you talk to these things is that there's no real correlation between what they're saying and how they're saying it. Like the voice doesn't really understand what it's saying. So that's the problem one of the problems that we're solving is that we have a text-to-speech model that understands language, understands what it's saying, and is saying it in the right way, emphasizing the right words, using the right tune, rhythm, and timbre, and it really feels different because this feels like something that for the first time understands what it's saying.
And what's the outcome of your work? Is it to build another app that we can go and download and try, or is it to develop this into new products or even existing ones? Like, for example, when I shout at I call her Lady A because I don't like to set her off, but I do shout sometimes because she doesn't hear me, and the idea of her sort of crying in response to that does worry me a little bit. I often say, I must always be nice to my Lady A because one day she'll come back after me if I'm not. Is that the outcome of your work, to sort of improve these devices or influence new ones?
So we make our technology available to developers to build voice interfaces into anything. So, and then, particularly for accessibility, you can see immediate use cases there where you can just, with a few lines of code, make this website into a voice interface or this app. And no matter what it is, our voice can analyze what it's being put into and be able to actually operate it by talking to you. So that's the general objective. And when you look at Alexa, Siri, those technologies, hopefully I don't set it off, but
so far so good.
Yeah, those are built for kind of a narrow range of commands that they can carry out. This is a more general technology, and we want to make it available more broadly.
You must yourself look at the growth of AI in just the last year alone and the capabilities of it. Where will we be in a year's time? I mean, it does seem as if, you said earlier, you don't believe these will ever have the consciousness or the ability to communicate back the way that you and I are talking right now. But it does feel, even in these early days, that we're not that far off that to some degree.
I think in terms of its ability to communicate, it will have that. It will sound human, and it will be able to do most of the things that humans do, even in a year. It won't have conscious experience. It won't have feelings of its own. So you don't need to worry about that. It might be able to trick you into thinking it has feelings of its own, which is, one of the concerns.
But couldn't it achieve that through that knowledge that it's building? I mean, if it's learning about you as an individual through every conversation, could it start to almost build its own consciousness out of your experience? I'm thinking in the future. And I've heard some examples of this where people have taken, say, for example, the voices of dead people, and they've inputted these into, existing models where essentially all it is doing is reading a script back in that person's voice. But you could imagine a time where potentially all the conversations, all the things I've said over the years get sort of baked in. It understands my personality and it builds almost a clone of me, which is terrifying, I think, for anybody, because one of me is enough of it for anybody.
So the personal identity that these models put on that might make you think they're conscious in one situation is actually a very thin veneer of a personal identity. It can easily be changed to be anything. You can tell it's a dog and it acts like a dog, right? So what that would indicate is it doesn't seem to have a consistent personality or consciousness. It's really something that you program into it, and it's shallow and not that deep. So that's where I think that people can get confused, because if you just talk to these things, you don't really know how they work. It kind of seems like they have this consistent personal identity over time, but that's just how they've been prompted. And they can tell you that they're conscious, but if you tell them they're a dog, they'll tell you they know what it feels like to bark and have the olfactory system of a dog and so forth. And you realize that this is actually sort of an illusion that they put on.
Alan, there are many people who watch our show and who are out there with speech disabilities. The only method they might have to communicate is via text. We've all had that email that we've wondered about what the tone of the email is. How do you detect tone from text using a model like yours? Is that something you've considered?
No, that is all 100% part of what we're building. So being able to take everything you're looking at and first of all, summarize it. So it doesn't need to be as verbose probably as what you're used to. It can be almost like somebody else looking at it with you and explaining things in a way a human would. But even better, because it knows you really, really well. This voice interface that we're building can be personalized. It understands the best way to explain things to you. It can take on any personality you want and so forth. So that's sort of the goal. And then you can dictate things to it and it can take actions. And it knows your tone of voice. So it can convey that tone into text, for one thing. It can convey the text back into the right tone. It can know what words you're emphasizing. So if you're confused about something, it knows what you're confused about. It can unpack just that. And it learns over time. So, if you're frequently frustrated with the way it's doing something, it can actually figure that out and do things differently the next time.
Incredible time. I really appreciate you coming on, Alan. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Still not sure if I should be scared or not, but it's really cool stuff from Hume AI. When we return here on Access Tech Live, what can we expect next week at Apple's Worldwide Developers Conference? We'll break it down along with our personal wish lists here on Access Tech Live.
There's more Access Tech Live to come. Get involved and have your say at Access Tech Live on social media. We'll be right back.